All right, Genna, I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because you have taken your business through a lot of like ups and downs in your personal life. And I'm thinking of so many business owners, we kind of get in a groove. And as much as we hate to admit it, we do need to plan for unexpected changes. Some of your changes were expected. You had 9 months to expect one change.
Yes.
But some others just, kind of just came up. And so it's a really important facet of running your own business. So thank you so much for being here to have this conversation.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on. I think it's an
Yeah.
important conversation to have. And it happens, I think a lot of us, the sort of the family responsibilities and stuff fall on us. It's just our demographic. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I'm excited to be talking about this with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So how about you tell us about the Wedding Gown Tailor, how that came to be and how it's been growing the past couple of years so much?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Wedding Gown Tailor. So I started learning how to do bridal alterations while I was in college. And the kind of condensed version of the story that I tell people is I have a degree in geoscience. And I was in school, I was broke as you are. And
Mhm.
I was like, I need a job. I've been sewing for years, oh, well over 10 years, pajama bottoms and pillowcases and that
Right.
kind of thing, and
Yeah.
a couple
The
of
basics.
dresses.
Like those are like the best first projects.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely. A
still have
couple of
my first
dresses.
pillowcase that I made when I was, I don't know, 14. And yeah, I still
Oh,
use it.
that's
Got cats
fantastic.
on it. Yeah.
And so I thought it might be fun to just see what's out there. I was kind of a crafty person, see what's out there and do something a little bit different. My coursework was really science heavy. So I just wanted to kind of have an outlet for that other side of myself and make some money. And I did not know the bridal sewing existed. And then so I got a job with a major retailer who is a large employer of seamstresses.
We remain
Y'all know who
unnamed,
that
but we
is.
all know who we're talking about. Yeah.
And I was lucky because I had a great manager and some great people around me, and they taught me, what to do and how to do it, and gave me some confidence, and really were very patient with me. And I stuck with it through the rest of college. And when I graduated, I realized that my two career options were keep going in the sewing career
Mhm.
that suddenly had found out that what could be a real career. And my other option was to work outside in the field with stinky boys. So I chose inside with pretty dresses. And yeah, just never stopped. When I had my first son in 2019, I was commuting to Nashville every day to do this job. And I decided that sort of my long term plan was okay, you're going to stop commuting. You're going to work from home. You can totally
Mhm.
do this. And so I did that. And I had my husband was my little safety net. And I was just able to work from home with my oldest, who was the baby at the time.
Mhm.
And the Wedding Gown Tailor kind of started in 2019. And 2020 was
Wow.
crazy, but that's okay because he was still a little. And so, I had some time to spend with him.
Mhm.
And then in 2021, I got pregnant with my second one. We sort of lost our safety net of my husband's job. And it was kind of like, well, how much are you actually making? And I didn't know. And
Yeah.
it kind of forced us to take a different look at things
Mhm.
and to
Mhm.
plan for what we were going to do. I was about 6 months pregnant with my youngest. And so we had to plan out what we were going to do, and how we were going to make it work. What if he
Yeah.
doesn't find a job in the next few weeks or few months?
Mhm.
And did not find a job for the next 9 months. And we made it through. So,
Wow, I love that
yeah.
because I think so many of us do start off with like, okay, maybe this could be a side hustle, or maybe, we'll see. And initially you start making money, it's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then you don't necessarily feel the need to track it all the time. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm just adding to, this isn't the case for everybody. Some people they are, the solo breadwinner in their home, or they're living alone, and it's like they're paying their own rent, so they need to know the numbers. But I think for a lot of us, it like your story will resonate with a lot of listeners, because it does start off as like, okay, just wow, I'm making grocery money, I'm great, making the gas money, and then there comes a point where it's like, oh, we do need to look at the numbers, whether it's a circumstance that's like unplanned that like forces you to look at the numbers, or you're like, oh, how far can I take this? Let me think about this and really break it down. So whatever gets you to that point, I think we all have been there where it's like, where are we going
Yeah.
with this? Like, what is the long term? So when
Yeah.
you first started doing bridal, was there like a particular like kind of work or kind of client that lit you up? Like, what's your favorite kind of alterations to sew or things to work on? Do you love reinventions? Do you like standard, just run of the mill?
Yeah, so I'm one of the weird ones. I like to do anything I haven't done before because I like the aspect of trying to figure it out. And
Yes,
then
that is not me. I'm like, oh, give me something that I've done
it's
before, and then
kind
I
of
can just,
scary.
yeah.
It's kind of scary, but I don't know. I love the sense of
It's scary.
accomplishment.
That's a really good word for it. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. You're always a learner. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And I just like to look at things like, okay, I don't know how to do that now, but I think I
Mhm.
have all the tools in my tool bag. And if I figure out which ones to pull out and use this time, then I'll know how to do it after I'm done, with this
What was
project.
your
So
first, do you remember your first dress where you felt like that? Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but like your first big project like that.
I think it took me a good minute to master sleeves. Like the first person that was like, hey, will you make sleeves for me? And she was just the sweetest, sweetest person. But I did not know what I was doing. And it took a bit of trial and error, trying to figure out what's my process for this. And, people would come for like 3 fittings. And we try to get
Mhm.
those sleeves just right that armhole. Oh my goodness, I could rip out so many hairs over those armholes. I've mastered it now. I'm really good at it. Somebody's like, make me sleeves. I'm like, all right, I'll just tack 3 hours on. We'll be good. But yeah, those first like couple of sleeves were like,
Mm.
what is going on? But I knew that I had to push through them because it wasn't going to be the last time. And
Right, right.
now people ask me for all kinds of really fun sleeves, and I love it. I'm a
Well,
sleeve
good for
girl.
you. Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking for like, are you gonna have tutorials coming out? I know you do post tutorials sometimes, so
Yeah, every once in a while I
yeah.
do. I'm kind of famous for my my underwire bra
The
cuts. Everybody's like,
underwire,
oh
yes.
yeah, it's bra cup girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to have like a 2.0 like sleeve, like how you mastered sleeves in 3 hours, whatever. Yeah. 'Cause that I know you're not the only one who like,
Sewing
ooh,
sleeves
gets so
without
intimidated.
tears. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need something.
Well, good for
Yeah.
you for still taking on the challenges and like enjoying the learning process and enjoying
Mhm.
like figuring out where to find the solution. Like you said, you have it in your tool bag. Like
Yeah.
just a matter of like piecing it together. Sometimes it's even like, okay, take a deep breath and like
Yeah.
remember the skills that you have, and then
Sleeping
you have
on it.
resources for the rest.
Yeah, sleeping on it is very, I think, underestimated. If you're
Mm.
like having a rough time with it, put it down, go do something else, come back to it the next morning after you've had a good night's sleep. And I don't know, our brains like literally work it out while we're sleeping.
Yes,
You ever
that's
sew in your
so
sleep?
funny. Yeah, I remember this was years back. I had a vintage gown and I was really struck. She wanted a completely new neckline, and I was really nervous about it because like once you cut it, with the neckline. And I
Yeah.
was like, how is this? And I dreamt about it. And I woke up and I was like, oh, that's literally how I would do it. So it's almost like your subconscious is telling you, like, remember, you know how to use this, you know how to use interfacing, all that stuff
Yep.
that like you just forget, or maybe you're like so like
In the
upset
moment.
in the
Yeah.
moment that you can't think through that. So that's so funny that you
Yeah.
mentioned that. Yeah.
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 I definitely, if I'm stuck on something, it's like, okay, I need to take a nap or I need to just come back in the morning.
Yeah.
Your brain will really work it out for you. And I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times in the night I've been just laying there completely awake, just thinking through it. And it's like, oh, if I do it this way, it'll save me so much time.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is hilarious and very, very relatable.
Mhm.
So now we know, or now your neighbors will know if they have like a tricky dress or, a big request, they know where to send it because you enjoy that kind of stuff. So
I do,
it's
yeah.
good. Good for you.
Yeah.
And then
Boy.
do you have consistent feeder shops? Or I mean, are you seeing similar designers or do you see like,
Yeah.
because I feel like I can kind of predict the designers that I'm going to work with, you know what I mean? Which is really,
Mhm.
I like that anticipating, okay, I learned this a couple months ago, so now I can use the same thing on this dress or whatever. But do
Oh,
you
yeah.
see a lot of different designers come through?
I see a lot of like Morley and Essence of Australia
Mhm,
and Allure, I think are the
mhm,
ones that I see the most often. Some of the Waters lines I see
mhm,
pretty often as well. I
mhm.
have a couple of shops that are pretty consistent and, I got in with one shop right when they first opened. I think I was one of the first people to reach out to them.
Oh,
And they had this one Morley dress. They sent that dress to me, I think the first year that they were open, like, gosh, I had the thing on my rack once or twice a week. I would be working on that thing like every week. It's like, okay, pull
we
out
all
this
can
dress.
picture those kind of dresses where it's like, oh yeah, that
Uh-huh.
one.
But you know what? It just got to the point where I was like, it's that dress.
Yeah,
I know it like the back of my hand, in and
right.
out. I know what to do for there was only one bustle that worked for it. And so I'd be like, oh yeah, I just do this. Da 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 da.
Mhm. Yeah.
I knew how long it would take me, and it wasn't a difficult dress. So it was
Yeah, yeah, those are kind of
like,
little
oh, that
rewards.
dress.
Like, there's actually one
Yeah.
right now that this summer I've probably seen 7 times, and I'm like, "Well, I know where to start to peel the lace off, like, I know where that overlay begins," you know?
Yep. I know all the tricks.
Definitely,
I know what
yeah,
to look for.
definitely
They all had
save
like
some time.
the same little issue in the back. The lace would get kind of bubbly in the back. So I knew always to check for that. Oh yeah, that'll
Mhm.
be a little extra thing that I can do that will make them feel like it's really, professionally touched and
Yes,
like
yeah, and,
they,
like,
you know,
sculpted.
yep, yep,
Yeah.
airbrushed, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. Yep.
All right, so let's kind of shift into the scheduling or planning ahead. And I want to first
Yes,
talk about the event, the life event that you could plan for. So the one that
yes,
like, okay, I think it was like your second pregnancy that you could plan for. And then
yes.
we'll get into more the unexpected thing. But I know obviously your husband's job situation wasn't pre-planned, but you did
No.
have a time where you like sat down and
Mhm.
worked through everything before this more unexpected event that came later in life. So let's talk about the pregnancy prep first and give us some tips walking through that.
Yes, absolutely. So I didn't really plan too much for the first one. My husband had his job, I had my job, and I my plan was, quit and stay
Yeah.
home and start this business. That was my plan. So I did that. But then most of us are self-employed. I think most of your audience, we're all self-employed, and so we don't get like maternity leave. And it kind of cracks me up when people are like, oh, our country's so behind, we don't offer paid maternity leave and this and that. And it's like, well, but also if you're unemployed, you wouldn't get that anyway. So unless it was some kind of federal thing. So, but one thing that you can do is you actually have 10 months to plan, and even longer, if you're, I know that
Anticipating that.
pregnancies
Yeah.
happen that are not planned, and you might find out, a few months into it. But a lot of the times you can know, like, okay, that we're going to start doing this. We're going to start, planning for our family. So you can what I had I was 6 months in. Was I 6 months
Wow.
in? I was 6 months in to my I we found out that my husband lost his job in September, and I gave birth in January. So, yeah. That's how long we had to,
Wow.
kind of figure things out. But knowing what I know now, I think I would start from the very, very beginning and
Hmm.
start setting aside. We figured out what our monthly expenses were, and then we figured out what kind of maternity leave I wanted to take. And that's the really fun thing, is your job will always be waiting for you when you get back,
That
because
is
you are in charge of
so true. Yes,
that.
yes.
You are in charge of that. So that is the one nice thing. You don't have to worry about employers being weird and all that kind of stuff. So
There will
just
always
from
be a demand too. It's so
yes,
funny. My sister-in-law, she's in Minnesota and she's a great seamstress and she's gone back and forth and she's like, I'm gonna take time off because I have, she homeschools all 4 of her kids and she's really
yeah.
busy and like
Wow.
Yeah. And she just has like a lot of really fun things on her plate. So she'll kind of like take a break and then she'll come back and then she'll take a break. And so now she's at a season where she's back in sewing. And she just mentioned it to me like a month ago, like, I'm think I'm going to accept some clients again. And now she has 4 dresses. So it's like, the word spreads so quickly.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because there is that fear of like, well, if I step out of the game, it's like, I'm done. And you're not. You just kind of
Yes.
know who to tell that you're back open, or
Yeah.
and the business comes to you. So that's a great encouragement right off the
Yeah,
top.
and we like to complain about, oh, these people, they're so last minute. Why is somebody contacting me for a wedding in less than a month or whatever? But that always happens.
Yes,
And so you
yeah.
always know that that's going to be there. And
Mhm,
when you are thinking about, okay, I'm going to come back in, I'm going to come back into the game, go to your contacts, go to your seamstress friends
mhm,
and let them know, hey, look, if you have any referrals, like if you can't, I know you're booked up, for the next 6 months. I'm not.
yeah,
Go to
yeah,
you can be the absolute hero to the
mhm,
boutiques that refer clients to you, because they can be the hero for their clients to say,
mm,
I
mhm,
know this person has a spot for you. Call her. It's going to be okay. I can
yeah,
just take that stress off. So there's always going to be those last minute people. You can always jump back in. I It was tricky to try to figure out how to, plan for that, because so basically I did not want to like make it super public that I was pregnant, and I didn't want other people deciding for me whether I was or
mm,
wasn't taking clients. So
mm,
my language, and this is different for everybody, but my language was, I decided at the very, very beginning of the pregnancy which months I was going to take off. And so where I was going to stop and where I was going to start again,
mhm,
and, figured out all of like can I take last minute people? Can I not? Like, when are these brides getting married that I'm able to serve at this point after my maternity leave? And, figuring out the timeline for that as soon as I could. And at that point, I would just tell people, I'm booked, but if your wedding is in such and such, I can take you, or I'm booked. And I would just tell people I'm booked.
mhm,
Like, I can't take any more bookings right now.
mhm.
And the
And you
why
don't need
doesn't
to
really matter.
disclose any more
I
information.
do
That's
not owe
fine.
you an
No.
explanation. I am booked,
Yeah.
whether that's clients or whether that's just me personally taking some time off.
Mhm. I'm
Um,
emotionally booked. Can't take anything.
right, right, exactly. So that's what I did. That's just how I chose to handle it, because I think whether or not other people mean to, they will kind of make assumptions about, what you're going to say yes to. And
Okay.
I just didn't want anybody doing that for me. I didn't want to be written off like, oh, well, I don't know if she's taking more clients. She's got a new baby. I just didn't want that. So
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah.
yeah. So I just
Mhm,
chose to keep my reasons private, and then just tell people I was booked.
mhm.
Which made me look super popular. But in
Like
reality,
super high
and
demand. Yeah.
it's funny, I was listening to, the most recent episode as of this recording about the marketing lady
Oh,
that you're
yeah.
talking to, and we were talking about booked means something different for everybody, and I was like,
Yes.
"Yup."
Exactly.
Booked for me
Yeah, so
means
next time you
I'm
see there's a
off.
booked announcement, it may actually be like a pregnancy announcement and you just don't know. So
Yeah,
you
read
can't
between those
assume.
lines.
That's
So,
so
yeah.
funny.
So anyway, so that's kind of how I manage the scheduling, and that's
Mhm.
something that you can do when you have that time to plan.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be able to have that time to plan. And then the
Mhm.
other thing is the financial aspect of it, where you figure out what your monthly expenses are, and then you can save up enough to, and I think that you should do this whether you're self-employed or not. You can save up enough to cover your expenses during that maternity leave. And if you need to
Mhm.
just kind of like tighten up your belt, during those 3, 4 months, however many, long you want to take off, but you can save that up, and you can maybe even figure out how much the birthing process is going to cost, and save up for that as well. Cause that's
Mhm.
usually a few $1,000s as well. So
Yeah.
that was something that we
We
were kind of
have you ever
snuck.
read Profit First or done any Profit First trainings?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and they talk about one of their, envelopes, quote unquote, is a seasonal envelope. So I've been trying to do that just we do have an ebb and flow with our busy seasons, and
Yeah.
to train myself like, okay, I'm not going to be making this much come like, December. So it's like just
Mhm.
putting some away so that I can take out from that seasonal bank,
Exactly.
whether or not you're planning for, a significant life change. It's just like that little extra emergency fund or like slow season fund, and
Yeah.
just consistently putting away like even like 3%, that's going to add up down the road. So
Exactly.
it's a good
Exactly.
reminder.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, that's smart to do regardless of whether you're planning to take time off or,
Hmm.
whether you're not going to be making as much later. In the Nashville area where I am, it's wedding season like from
It's
March
always.
to like mid-December.
I know.
So we do not
Yeah.
what time off.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's that, and I'm blessed to kind of have that steady income.
Hmm.
And I also capped. So I'm like, I get this many and then that's it. So once
Hmm.
I reach my cap, I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm going to make this much money, these weeks.
Right. Right. Hmm.
Yeah.
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 So then how did uh, the planning for the unexpected come along? Because that all sounds great. Like, okay, you're able to kind of put some cash away. You're able
Yeah.
to like pre-plan, what your like cap was going to be of how much you booked. But then something unexpected came up and you had to plan around that too. So let's talk about that piece.
Yes, yes. Okay, so that was sort of a wake-up call for me.
Mm.
What happened was, let's see, let me count this out. My son was, I think, 4, almost 5 months old, and my mom had a really big health situation, and she was in the hospital for a while, and then she was in a rehab facility for a while, and I kind of came to this realization that my parents are at a certain age, and I'm the daughter that lives in the in state. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. But my parents are kind of at that age where something major is probably going to happen every few years. So when it happened, I had just come off of maternity leave, like just like a month after I come off from maternity.
Wow.
I literally was taking clients, and my dad called me that morning. It was like, "Yeah, your mom's in the hospital, blah blah blah. This happened last night." And then I had to like take clients. And then I had to like, as soon as my last client left, like pack up and head down there. And I live about
Wow.
a little over an hour away from them. And, then it got to the point where it's like, well, I need to move in temporarily. And so I was sewing dresses on the dining room table and I was not sleeping, and it was nuts. And one thing that I had tried to plan for when I was planning for my pregnancy is what happens if something unexpected happens with the pregnancy and I can't fulfill all of my commitments. So one thing that I did was kind of build a network of people that I could, were kind of like emergency contacts as far as getting the work done. And I went through and I made a plan. Okay, whose deposits am I going to give back? What's my step by step? So I take deposits because I have very limited spots, and I just can't afford for people to, say that they're coming and count on that $600 or whatever and then them no show. So I take
Yeah.
deposits.
Yeah.
And so I came up with a plan of like, okay, if this happens, what am I going to do first? Am I going to give back deposits? Am I going to reach out to so and so on my contact list and ask them if they can take a few dresses for me? Who am I going to reschedule? So you want to kind of figure out your sort of emergency exit plan
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
far as, how to take care of your clients. And I got all of like the logins and phone numbers and stuff for my husband to make sure that if I was like incapacitated for some reason, like stuck in the hospital or whatever, he could go down into my office and like, okay, call these people and do
Wow.
this and do
That
that and
is
bring me this and that. So
brilliant. Because as
yeah,
you're saying that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like,
yeah.
he
What
needs
would
to
happen
see my
if
calendar
you
and,
were
like, who
out?
is booked. Oh my goodness. Of having almost like you have this, like, emergency call list,
Mhm.
not just for, like, to alert people that you're in the hospital, but have, like, couple people to be on deck to contact your clients or have access to your calendar and
Yes.
see. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow, I had never thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's,
Ron and I are having a conversation tonight
yeah,
about here's how to log into my Square account.
exactly. Yeah. I'm just, that person that would have nightmares about what happens if I,
Yeah.
like, heaven forbid, drop dead and then my people are banging on the door and my husband's
Yes.
overwhelmed. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like, what do you want from me?
Hmm.
So yeah. So I think it's important to have an emergency kind of plan in place. And you don't need to put specifics and names like, I'm going to call Sally Johnson because her dress, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you're not going to know when these things happen.
Right. Right.
So you're not going to know if Sally Johnson's the one that's going to get her deposit back or get her
Right.
dress passed off.
Hmm.
But you can come up with a generalized plan, step 1, through 10 or whatever, of what you do and what order you do it in to kind of get everybody taken care of. Make sure
Hmm.
that there's somebody else that knows what, how to find the information that
Hmm.
they need and what to do, and knows where to find those steps and how to find everything they need for taking care of those steps for you. I did not need to we didn't need to implement that plan. Everything went
Yeah.
fine. And then as far as, so, then I got my baby, take my, really lovely 4-month leave and come back for a month, and then all of a sudden haywire. And I started going through my plan. My husband had just gotten hired. So I started going through my plan, like, okay, it's all right. We don't need the money. We'll be all right. And so, okay, so I'm going to reschedule so-and-so. I'm going to give back so-and-so's deposit. I'm going to get her connected with that seamstress. And I got home from the hospital that first night, and my husband was like, yeah, that was a contract job. The contract got pulled. So we're back to square one. And I was like, oh no.
Oh my goodness.
So
Because
I
when you're
couldn't do
first talking,
any
I'm
of
like,
that
oh,
plan.
that definitely kind of alleviates, like, you do have to kind of give
Yeah.
up the money, but at least you get that peace of mind. But then you come home
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, I don't have that luxury. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings me, we can kind of fast forward to now. I got through it. I didn't sleep very much, but I got through it. I had Stephanie, and
Oh, yeah.
she was one of my contacts, and so she helped me out a lot. She helped take some of that off of my plate, and I couldn't afford to give it all up, but I could afford to, get Stephanie to help me. And actually, she offered to help me out for free, and she was barely sleeping herself, like between
Oh my
driving to meet me
goodness.
and, like, all the things that she needs to do for her kids. She did. I paid her because I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm profiting from this, so you should too. But but yeah, I mean, so you
Wow.
you got to have those people. You got to build your network. We can't all possibly dominate all of the business from our respective areas. We have to have, especially when we're self-employed, we have to have people that we can reach out to and lean on sometimes,
Hmm.
and then be there for them,
Yeah.
when they need it. So it's so important to get connected to the other people that do what you do in your area. It's that
Yeah.
I feel like really strongly about that. But
Yeah.
and I
And I
know
think
you do too, because
yeah. Yeah. And I think,
yeah.
like, if you are receiving the phone call,
Hmm.
know that they are in a really desperate situation to call you, and a
Yeah,
kind
absolutely.
response is truly appreciated, because I've been on the other end of the line where it's like, oh, okay, thanks anyway. Okay, message
Yeah,
received. So
yeah,
just, we all get to that point, and it's not like we planned for it. Clearly, that's what this conversation is about. Like,
that's the whole point. Yeah,
yes, and, like, there needs to be that laying down of, I don't know if it's like ego or pride or whatever, or like, oh, well, how come you're here? Didn't you plan better? Like, we don't need that.
yeah, yeah. We could all. I mean, I love the phrase, "But for the grace of God, go I," because it could happen to anybody at any moment,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
just being self-employed, you got to put those systems in place, because
Hmm.
otherwise we're leaving brides hanging. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that's like our worst nightmare.
Oh my
So
goodness. Yeah.
gotta come up
It's
with a
like
plan for it. So
nightmares, truly.
yeah.
Wow. And I know, like, because I know the Stephanie side of it, how she had
Mhm.
recently moved to the area, and it was so serendipitous because I was hearing her side as it was happening.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
was so excited to like be able to work on dresses still after the move.
Yeah.
And so it was just totally meant to be.
It was,
That's
yeah, and
great.
we still chit chat a lot, and it was definitely encouraging for both of us. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does not have to be like, and I was happy to, kind of get her started, and I was like, yes, we need more people. So
Yeah. Yeah. Always.
um,
The market is always like you're always gonna be booked. You know what I'm saying? Like there's
yeah,
always room. So
yeah,
that's a really
the
good
clients will
message in
always be
there.
there, and I mean, just going back to that, the clients will always be there, full
Mhm.
circle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whether you take a
exactly.
break, or, whether there's somebody else pops up in your area, they'll still be there. There are thousands of weddings happening, and you can handle, I don't know, if you're like a extreme workaholic and maybe you have a couple of employees, like maybe 500 of them.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, and that's like sleeping only 6 hours a night.
Yeah, exactly. And because there's so many things, like so many little nuggets that you've passed just from your two experiences. And I'm thinking too, if people need to take, well, need to, or planning like an extended vacation or just extended time
Mhm.
off, having like your completion. I like have a very low key scenario. I'll just be out of town for a while at the end of the month. And so I'm like planning just my work to get off my plate. And then when I
Yeah.
come back, I don't want any pickups within my first 2 weeks of being home. So it's like
Yes.
just the strategic long term
Yeah.
planning of like what, how do I actually want to feel when and maybe too with like something like an extended maternity leave, pacing yourself to know when you come back, what you can actually handle. Just like after a little
Right.
vacation, it's like, I know that I
Right.
can't handle pickups that week. Like I need to ease back to it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I didn't want to have any like dresses hanging on my line. I didn't want to
Hmm.
have anything hanging over my head. I wanted it all done, and I want to start completely fresh when I came back. And so, and I also, gave myself a buffer. So I think I took 4 months plus 2 weeks or plus a week or whatever, just in case, like, I went into labor early, because you really can't tell with those things. I wasn't
Yeah.
getting induced or anything. So just, I think I know of one seamstress who I think her water broke while she was in a fitting.
Oh my
I
goodness.
was like, I don't want that to happen. And it was during
No.
the holidays too. I was due like a couple days after Christmas. I ended up
Mhm.
going all the way into January. But I was just like, man, no, I think I'd like my Christmas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for real.
just
Yes,
gonna cut it
exactly.
off. We're just gonna get everybody out the door,
Yeah.
and then start
And it
fresh.
probably would vary, like, if somebody were to have, because recently I heard from a listener who she had an illness in the family, like a long-term illness, and so she had to kind of adjust her schedule to be on call for her family,
Hmm.
and that's a tricky balance too, because it's like, if you are becoming like the breadwinner, like you're responsible for the money. There's
Hmm.
that pressure of like actually accepting work. And, nobody plans for that to want to be in that position or have that pressure.
Yeah.
But if that comes along, it's like you balance that with also being available and, being there for your loved one. So it's like
Yeah.
it needs to be an individual balance. Like, what you can handle. But I think going back to building that little network around you so
Yes.
that, okay, I bit off more than I can chew. Like, who can
Yeah.
I call for help? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of those bits of my network was my mother-in-law, and just kind of recognizing, like, I've got too much to do this week.
Mhm.
I need to make the call on Monday. Hey, is there any day this week that you can just take the kids and watch them for me while I just like put my head down and focus? That's been something that I've been learning how to do, is sort of looking at week or 2 weeks ahead and anticipating
Yeah.
what's, what I'm going to need help with. Um,
Right, right.
and I'm one of those, don't ask for help if there's any way you can possibly do it by yourself people. So it's been a tough lesson for me to learn, for sure.
Yes, yeah. And also,
Yeah.
I would think like, okay, but this is how I do it. Like, this is how I'd sew the dress, and you have to kinda let go of all of that then, if you're asking for help with the sewing piece, like, being able to trust the work to Stephanie or whatever, and
Yeah,
then
I would make her
also
little videos, and I would be like, "This is what's going on with this dress. And this is what's going on with this dress." And I would like give her, "You pick. What are you
yeah.
comfortable with? I'll bring it to you."
Oh, that's perfect. That's a really good
Yeah,
idea. So there's, like, some give and take of or they had a
yeah,
choice, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So
think. I recognize that we had similar training, and so I
Right.
trusted her pretty well, and she, she would only take. She also kind of took on that burden of like, oh my gosh, somebody else's name is on my work, like it has to be perfect, and so
Yes, that's so much pressure.
um yeah, yeah. So she was like, she's really good about only taking what she was comfortable with, and only what she felt like she could,
Mhm.
do with everything that she was trying to handle. So
Right, right, right. Exactly.
yeah,
So hopefully you're on a steady path now and
yes.
nothing weird will come up. But I think this is just such a good conversation. And it's not necessarily fun because nobody really wants to consider
Mm-mm, no,
emergencies, but like the
they will
alternative
happen.
is right.
Yeah.
You just always have to plan or you plan to fail. So,
Yes.
and I know even for me, I'm like, hey, I
Absolutely.
have things that I'm like, even just this weekend, I'm like, I want to get on paper or just kind of have a game plan for like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Yeah. Or
Fantastic.
even having different, like you mentioned, your mother-in-law can watch the kids, like having different people to delegate, like this person
Hmm.
can handle my emails or this person can actually handle the
Yeah.
sewing or this person can, make the
Yeah.
social media
Or,
announcements or whatever.
maybe I don't have time to cook dinner this week, so I'm gonna,
Yeah.
do this for my meals,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Yeah. Just,
It's
I know
more than
you've
just
touched
the
on that
sewing. Yeah.
before, doing, outsourcing where you can, but
Yeah.
yeah, looking ahead, because, you can look at your work for the next week or two, and see what's going on, and see whether even just some extra help is gonna just help.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it kind of brings me to where I am now. And so I was just kind of going over all of everything that we've been talking about in my own mind for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And I'm going, there's got to be a solution, because something is going to happen in the next
Mhm.
year, 2 years. I hope it's longer, but
Yeah.
something's going to happen
Yeah.
eventually, and I'm going to be pulled away again for with my mom. I was living temporarily at their house, my parents' house, driving back and forth the hour, plus to get to my workshop to fit
Mhm.
my clients, bringing all the dresses back, sewing on their dining room table. And we
Wow.
were living there temporarily for, let's see, May, June, I think 3-ish months we were doing
Mhm.
that.
Wow.
And at the end of those 3 months, I said, I am not, I'm taking on too much.
Mhm.
I think, even though I'm doing more than I would normally do, I think I'm still taking on too much, too many dresses. I need to like cut it down by half. So I ended up cutting it down by half in it. And I feel like I'm in a comfy spot right now,
Good.
as far as
Good.
how much work I'm taking on at a time.
Right.
And I was able to do like 5 dresses a week. It was kind of hectic, but I was able to do 5 dresses a week with my
Mhm.
son. And at this point, I'm just doing two.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like, no, I'm capping
Mhm,
it.
and I think that's important, like, a really good
Yeah.
conversation at our retreat in January, we were talking about, like, okay, income goals, and, it wasn't uncommon to hear, like, "Oh, I don't know, I just wanna make more than last year," and it's like,
Yeah.
that can be good, but then it can also be like, what is your limit then? Because, like, if we don't have this kind of, like, safe set number,
Hmm.
then you just are like kind of burying yourself, like, and then it just becomes almost like unattainable. So
Hmm.
I like how you've brought this up several times in the conversation of like knowing what your family budget is or knowing the cost of living for you two or you
Hmm.
four, I guess. And then being able to plan your business around that because not everybody has like the time or the energy to want to build like this growing business where it's like, okay, we
Hmm.
make this much, then I hire more, then I hire more. Like for
Hmm.
a lot of seamstresses, especially if they're working from home, it's like, what can I comfortably fit in my life right now and
Yeah.
and and have an attainable number and then that's it, instead of like just constantly taking the next one and not really having that cap. So
Yes, and
there's
I've
a lot of
definitely
safety in
been
that.
there. And my husband was like, you got to say no to somebody at some point." This is a way back at the very beginning, and I was
Right.
like, "Why do you limit me?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "You're right.
It's hard.
You weren't
Everybody,
trying
I
to
think you
limit me.
need
You
to
were
go
trying
you
to
need to
save
live through
me."
that. Yeah. You need to live through a really scary season, and then you're like, "Okay, never again. Now I know what not to do," right?
Yeah. So
Unless you know the feeling of, like, the night sweats thinking about all you have to do tomorrow.
yes. Oh
Ah,
yes,
yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
So, and that got me to where I am now. Like, I know that situation, that whole, like, I'll be, moving back home and taking care of
Mhm.
somebody for however many months. We don't know. We don't know when, but we know it's probably going to happen in the next few years.
Yeah.
And so then my goal this year was to try to figure out what happens. Okay, now we can plan for this, because I
Mhm.
see it happening. I see this happening, several more times. So, how can I keep the cogs running while I can just take a step back? And so
Mhm.
things are not so dependent on me that, everything just comes to a screeching halt if I need to take a step back, because
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
really
lot of
hard.
pressure. Mhm.
And that's why we're having this conversation and talking about it, because it's all us. We're self-employed. We do everything. We do the social media and the sewing and the fitting and the phone calls and
Mhm.
emails and calling the insurance guy and all the things. It's us. And so I have come to the conclusion that for my business, it's the right time to hire so that things can keep running. And I'm not just going to hire like virtual assistants. I'm going to hire seamstresses. And I'm really fortunate that I have, candidates that I can choose from, that I trust, that I know, kind of from way back, and that are willing to work with me. And I know not everybody has that, but that's kind of where I am. That's what I'm planning for right now, is the next big,
The
health
up level.
situation.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that I'm gonna have to, like, move back home. And my goal is by then to have, a couple of employees and a space for them to work, so that
Mhm.
they can sort of keep on going, and I can check in and help where I can. But if I need time to step away, then I need time to step
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And
So
that
is
is,
that like your 5-year plan
yeah,
for the
yeah,
Wedding Gown
that's
Tailor?
that's like
Okay.
that's my year plan.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yes.
That's happening soon. And, I've already got things in the works for that.
That's very
But that
exciting.
is
Yeah.
taking the step from, I think, running and having my hand in every single pot
Mhm.
in the business to, owning it more,
Right. Right.
moving up to ownership. I think
Mhm.
that's where my next step is.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
so exciting, and it's just great that you've thrived through those circumstances. Maybe you felt like maybe you were just barely surviving at some point, but it's
I
like your
absolutely was.
business, yeah, your business has come out the other end and has been stronger for it, and like you're just so much wiser after having gone through that. So it's really exciting that you're in a place now where you don't need to anticipate the same situation if an emergency comes up. Like you're going to be able to be,
Yeah,
like you
I'm
said,
already planning for that
more
now.
independent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very exciting. Well, I
Thank
think
you.
this will be so helpful for listeners just
Hope so.
to think. I mean, we don't want to, but really to think of the what ifs and to get some plans in order. Maybe you're not in a position to hire help, but everybody's in a position to know your neighbors and to know like
Yes.
who you can pass work off to, or even it can start as like who has a good reputation, like who would you feel
Yeah.
comfortable, yeah,
Yeah.
um, giving your
Definitely. I
business to.
definitely encourage you to network
Hmm.
with the people that
Yeah.
are around you, because not only will that, that turn into, it could be completely mutually beneficial. You can send
Hmm.
work to them when you got too much, and then when you need to take some time off and you need to fill in that
Yeah.
beginning of you coming back, you can get work from them. I
Yeah.
literally have someone in my town right now who will only do bridesmaids, and I will only do wedding gowns. And we
Perfect.
got
Yeah.
together and we talked it out, and she was like, "Yeah, I just want to do bridesmaids." And I was like, "Well, I
Hmm.
just want to do wedding gowns." And so now we're trading clients. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
definitely that cannot hurt
Yeah.
to get in with the
Yeah.
people that are around you
Yeah,
and to build that
absolutely.
network. Mhm.
So where can we find you? I'm already following you, but how can other people find you and follow you? And I'll keep this in
Oh.
our show notes.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. I am at the Wedding Gown Tailor, and I am pretty active in the Bridal Alterations Anonymous Facebook group. And you can visit my website if you're curious, and that is www.theweddinggowntailortn.com.
Yes.
And if you're in the Nashville area, you know, I want to build my network. So consider me a part of your network. Absolutely.
Oh, I
Find me
love
on
that.
Facebook.
Little plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Genna, so much.
Thank you, Nadine.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And if you're feeling really generous, leave a review. Thanks, everyone.